Hey guys, it's Sam, and this is my spoiler-free review of The Collapsing Empire by John Scalzi. This book was sent to me for review by Tor. This is the first book in John Scalzi's new adult space opera series. I'm not sure if it's going to be a series or a trilogy or anything like that yet, but it is a definite space opera. It follows the galaxy far in the future where we have discovered how to travel through space, and all of these space colonies are very spread out because we travel through something called the Flow. It's a fun, crazy space thing that allows people to travel to very far-flung planets and remain connected through the galaxy, but at the start of this book, the flow is starting to collapse, and then we feel the ramifications of that and the people that's going to affect and the political machinations that it's going to jumpstart and everything throughout the story. So first off, let me talk about the world building. I enjoyed the world building in this because I don't find John Scalzi's science fiction to be too dense. He makes a lot of jokes when explaining a lot of his stuff, so that's kind of fun because he'll explain something. There's a part at the very beginning of the story where he's explaining the flow and kind of how it works, and then he keeps trickling down into explaining it in different ways that make it more and more ridiculous until he's basically like, this is all a big joke and like we don't understand anything because we're all fucking idiots and like whatever, which is funny. I really like his wit and the way of explaining things that he has, so it makes it so you don't feel like you're being condescended to. I feel like sometimes harder sci-fi can feel condescending even if that's not the intention, and this is really good for people that are just getting into science fiction and aren't really sure and stuff. Like, this is a book that definitely is like, we don't even really understand what this stuff is, so that's kind of fun, and I really liked that. Also, part of the world building and characters I'm going to kind of talk about combined, so I'll start talking about the characters. The people in this story, and all of the people pretty much you come in contact with, are more blunt and brutal and just like, just say what they mean all the time. Curse a lot and are just very straightforward, and that's kind of part of the world building too because it shows a culture in the future like this that is very based on trade, and there's guilds that are leading things which are sort of like merchants but also have very heavy political hands in things, and you kind of see how the world is based around this like capitalistic society, not necessarily in a good or bad way, but just very blunt. Like, I can't even think of another word for them, and that can be very jarring at first because at first I was like, wow, a lot of these characters are assholes, and I was like, oh, the entire civilization, for the most part, are assholes. So now I'll get a little more in-depth about the individual characters, but we follow a number of different people in the story. It's a multiple POV, but not in the, like, multiple POV way. It's more like an omniscient third-person narrator type thing. And we follow a starship captain slash a person that's part of a guild on this starship and everything that's going on with them and the political machinations, things that they run into. She is the character that I was initially like, wow, she's an asshole, because she is. She is probably the most blunt of all of the characters that you do come into. I mean, cursing constantly, says what she means, and is just a complete ballbuster, and she is amazing. But at first I was very not sure about her, but I did find that I was rooting for her more and more as the story went on. The next person we follow is the future Emperox. Emperox is a kind of like gender neutral term for the Empress or Emperor. They just call everyone the Emperox, and they are the ruler of all of the galaxy, so all of the galaxy is interconnected, and they rule everybody from the, you know, space hub. And she was actually not going to be Emperox, but then a series of events happened, and so now she's fallen into the role that she wasn't expecting to have. She was probably my favorite character. I just really enjoyed her manner and the way that she was very different from what people were expecting of her, and the different changes that she could kind of initiate and stuff. So I really like her, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of her. And lastly, we follow a couple of scientists in a family who are studying the flow, and they have a lot of things going on that affect everybody else because they knew what was happening with the flow potentially before it started happening. And because of the collapse of the flow, a lot of things are happening politically and people making different moves and maneuvers because everybody in this society is pretty ruthless and want to be on top, pretty much. So that is all the characters. Like I said, I enjoyed most of them, but it took a while to get attached to them. I feel like you are kept a little more at length, which is kind of weird because it is more of a character-driven story because you're following the characters and their reactions to the flow collapsing more than anything. So I wouldn't necessarily say it's very action-y. It is kind of like a political mystery at times in this book because there's a lot of different things and a lot of moving pieces and you're trying to figure out what exactly is going on. But I would have expected to be a little more attached to the characters a little faster. So that was kind of a bummer. And lastly, I'm talk about the plot. Like I said, it's a very character-driven, focusing on the reactions of people and the different moving pieces politically that are happening. And that was interesting, but again, it took a while for me to kind of like wrap my mind around what was going on, and it took me, like, sometimes I just didn't really quite care, but John Scalzi has a way of writing that is very just fast to read, just very engaging, very witty. So even at times when I was like, I don't really care about these characters that much, don't really know what's going on, I still wanted to keep reading. So overall, I thought it was a good story. It is not my favorite of Scalzi's. I have read the first Old Man's War book and liked that a lot more, and I want to continue with that series as well. But I am looking forward to the rest of this series. I think it's going to be a fun one. It is a space opera. There's a lot going on, and it's just fun and kind of brutal and just funny and just blunt, and I really enjoyed that. I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars. So comment below and let me know what you thought of The Collapsing Empire. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see all of you guys soon. Bye!